So, do you think the government should protect peaceful citizens against people that want to use force to take their money?
I think that's a given. I like that.
Can we live well? Can we live well if other people can legally gang up on us and forcefully take our money?
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with that.
You cannot, right? You need protection from the government against this.
Certainly.
Should the government redistribute its citizens' wealth by forcefully taking money from some citizens in order to provide goods and services for others?
I think absolutely. I think there are certain the tax rates for higher wealth individuals are actually lower than they have been in the past, contrary to some of the argumentation out there. But I think within reason. We have a society where there are people who need help from government. There's no getting around that. I think if they weren't helped, they'd be in the streets panhandling and robbing us.
Okay. So previously you had said that the government should protect us against people that are willing to use force to take our money, right?
Yeah.
So when the government forcefully takes money from some citizens through taxes in order to provide goods and services for others, are they protecting those taxpayers when they take their money forcefully?
I think so.
So you would say that forcefully taking their money through taxes is a protection of the taxpayer?
I think it's protection of taxpayers who need protection from others, whether it be in police and fire and safety.
Okay, well that's a kind of, but I'm not talking about rendering a service to the taxpayer like the firemen and the policemen. I'm talking about taxing them in order to provide goods and services for other people. There is a difference.
Yeah, I think there is a role for government to tax people who can afford to pay taxes, to help those who are at the bottom of the economic ladder. And it creates a society that allows people at the bottom to move up that ladder, to get a hand up, not a hand down.
So, in your view, when they tax a person to give the money to someone else, they're actually protecting that taxpayer. It's a kind of strange understanding of the word protection, because usually when people say protection, if I'm going to protect you, I'm protecting you against somebody who wants to take your money. Now you're saying if I want to forcefully take your money and give it to someone else, I'm protecting you.
Yeah, I think so, because I think people at the top of the economic ladder do need protection from people at the bottom. I mean, if you really look at it in a very crass way, I mean, if you have people at the bottom who are hopeless and without any help and are left to their own devices, I think the people at the top, this is where crime comes from. That's one way I see it as protecting.
So in a sense, it's like extortion money. So we have to, these rich people or these taxpayers, they're not all rich, have to pay these taxes to the government so the government can give it to the poor people so the poor people won't attack them?
Won't attack them.
Is that it?
I've never thought it through quite that way, but I see that. That's how I see it.
Shouldn't we let the taxpayer,
that's one way to see it.
Shouldn't we let the taxpayer decide if they want to pay this extortion or not? Maybe they want to just improve their security measures.
Right, yeah, they probably could spend it more efficiently on security measures. I just think you have an anarchy. I think you have a society that evolves into anarchy if you don't have a role for government to tax people and to pay and to cover and help those at the bottom. I mean, if you don't do that, I don't think you have a fair society in the long run, but it's within reason. I mean, I do think there are a lot of government programs that are needed, and government shouldn't be as big as it is. But this is where I have a problem with some of the libertarian views that I feel it goes too far in just eliminating any role for that.
Well, let's deal with a few concretes to put some focus on these general principles. If, let's say, a group of farmers wanted you to pay them for not farming, and they showed up in your house with shotguns, requiring you to pay them for not farming, would that be morally wrong?
We sort of have that system.
I know. I think that's good, but would that be morally wrong?
I think so.
Okay, but if they go to the government and persuade the government to tax you in order to give them money for not farming, then it's perfectly okay.
That program I don't like.
Okay, but so it would be wrong in both cases, regardless of whether they use the government to extract the money or not. Then it would be wrong.
I have a problem with tax subsidies, milk subsidies, for that reason. I mean,
so farm subsidies are bad.
What about foreign aid? So when they tax American citizens in order to give the money to Egypt or Pakistan or Israel or wherever?
Yeah, I have a problem with a lot of the foreign aid. I mean, I think it's like the argument is not necessarily philosophical. It's practical. I mean, if you take a philosophical argument all the way to its extreme, you have no government, you don't do anything. So there are going to be exceptions to your philosophy if you want limited government.
Well, wouldn't it be possible to have limited government where the government taxes the taxpayers in order to pay for the services that they render to those taxpayers, and let the taxpayers decide when to be charitable and when not, and whether to send money to Egypt or to send to Israel, if they want to support their local farmers, support them or not as they decide?
I think that's a utopian society. That would be the best answer if people actually did that.
So that would be a great objective.
It's an objective. I think it's somewhat unattainable.
Why is it unattainable?
I'm not confident people would fill in the gaps that you're talking about on their own.
You mean they wouldn't exercise a judgment in the way you expect them to or want them to?
I don't think so.
Okay, but so then you feel it's necessary to force them through the government to exercise the judgment the way you want them to exercise it?
Well, that's not necessarily what I want, but I think it's what makes sense in a society like ours, that as big as it is with as many problems, how are you going to pay for infrastructure and highways?
Well, that's a service. I mean, that's not taxing one citizen in order to give the money to someone else. It's a different situation, right? There's a fundamental difference between taxing a person for a service that's rendered to him, on the one hand, and taxing him to pay for a service that's rendered to someone else, correct?
Yes, but I still think that there are services rendered to other people who can't take care of themselves that are necessary.
So